Just in case you thought that I maybe fell off the bandwagon again, I did not. I am on the bandwagon and I'm very happy about it. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I started this journaling kind of journey right around the same time I started my channel, which was the beginning of this year, 2025. So I have historically been really bad with journaling. I've tried like 20 different times to get started and I never could make it a habit. It just, something every time kind of got in the way and I just never stuck with it. And at one point, somebody recommended this book to me and they said, you should try this out, just like read this book and see if you think it might help you. So I got my hands on a copy of that book, which is the Bullet Journal Method book, and I gave it a read, and a lot of what the author struggled with were things that I had struggled with too. So I made this video about all the different failures I had in journaling and why I just could never stick to it. And when I started reading this other book, I was like, oh, this author has had the exact same struggles that I have had. Now they're going to outline for me a system that might actually work for me. So I almost got pulled in really, really quickly into this book and thought, okay, you know, a lot of this is making sense to me. A lot of this seems like it could be helpful. The reason I started wanting to go back to journaling in the first place was just a general stress management. PhD programs are stressful, but in kind of weird ways, like not the typical stress that I was used to coming from industry, where I had a software engineering position and there were stresses that go along with that. This whole PhD process, the stresses are just very different. I started wanting to go back to journaling as a way to work on goal setting and stress management and just getting thoughts down that are in my head, getting them onto paper, because if you let like too many thoughts stay in your head, or at least for me, if I let too many thoughts just, boil up in the background, it just makes it hard to concentrate on any one thing because you have so many background processes running, basically, so many background thoughts always running. So I wanted to get back to journaling and I wanted to see if it could help me in grad school. And that's what led me down this whole path in the first place. So I started with this journal, which is a Dingbats Pro. It's a really beautiful journal. I happen to just like a high quality journal feel because it makes me feel a little bit more invested in it. It's kind of like buying your nice clothes for the gym. Like, yes, you are going to ruin them and sweat in them and they'll be gross, but there's something about putting on like a really nice gym outfit that just makes you feel ready to work out. And that's kind of how I felt about journaling, was like, I'm really not going to stick to this if I don't have something that feels good to use. So I went with a really beautiful Dingbats Pro journal. This one just has blank pages, so there are no numbers in it. I had to add everything from the bullet journal method system myself, and I set it up that way. And I had a little setup video about it too, but it's fairly large, as you can see. So I had to set up a whole index. I set up the key for myself, and the paper in here is like super, super thick. So there really aren't that many pages in this journal. Like 126 pages is all that fits in this notebook, and it's quite hefty. I actually filled this by April. So I started in February and I filled this entire journal by April. I think based on that, I think you'll know that I did stick with it at least 2 months, enough to fill a whole journal, and I've actually started another one. But there are things about this that I really, really like. That's why I wanted to make this follow-up on it, because I think it's probably the most important tool I have now for managing everything that's going on with grad school and life, actually. I mean, you're in grad school, but life goes on. There's still other stuff to do. So, I set everything up, the future log, the monthlies. I loved the monthly spread. Robotics conferences. This is like a really good way to keep me motivated, because a lot of these conference locations are places I've never been and maybe will never get to go unless I go through getting a paper accepted and then get funded by the school to go. So it's really motivating to see like, oh, if I get a paper here, I can go to Vienna or, South Korea or something like that. I loved this page just to come back to and be like, okay, when are my target goals? When do I need to have my paper like wrapped up and in a really polished state for submission? So this is what was helping me get an idea of that. My other favorite thing is book notes. This has been a big, big win for me. So The book note stuff, it's book notes and then whatever the name of the book is and the author. And then I have a page number that goes along with each thought or each part of the book that I really enjoyed and really identified with, wanted to remember, wanted to come back to. You know, it could be a quote or it could be my paraphrasing of something in the book or, you know, something it reminded me of. It doesn't really matter. It just matters that I can go back to the book and find where I was thinking about that and get the context back. Because sometimes you just forget. You're like, I remember this thing from this book, but I just can't remember where it is in the book. So I kept a book notes page for every single book I've been reading, except for audiobooks, because that's really hard to do. But this has been super helpful and I've loved it. You know, I did project management in here a lot. Oh, this is like early YouTube stats. This is very cute. I put a heart next to like hitting 1,000 subs on this channel, which was something I thought wouldn't happen for a couple of years, because it's hard for me to get videos out really quickly. So I was really happy about hitting 1,000 subs and I wrote that down as something to be excited about. Just lots of notes, so many notes on all the different things I'm learning. And it's kind of nice when you go back and you're like refreshing yourself, thinking about what you've done, and you can actually realize that, okay, I have done stuff, you know, here are like PhD milestones. Okay, like I have been doing things. In April, I got the ND Psych Fellowship. That's huge for me. And so it's nice to just be able to reflect a little bit, because progress is so nonlinear sometimes. You don't notice you're making progress when you do something day in and day out. And that's the biggest thing I've noticed with having a handwritten notebook for myself personally, is that I just reflect better on the progress I'm making when I can see it, like going back a couple months versus trying to compare day to day. It's just too hard to really see your progress and then you get demotivated. So I love things like this, like a milestones page, a goals page, and of course all of it tracked by the index. The weekly PhD time blocking, love doing this. This has been so helpful for me, because sometimes your schedule can feel really open-ended and then you're like, where did the time go today? You know, I was working on stuff. What was I working on? You know, where did all the time go? And then I can look at this and realize, okay, this was the day where I had, you know, 2 PI meetings. I had a different meeting, this other meeting. I went to an engagement to help with something. Okay, that's why I didn't really get that much done that day. And then I can look at the next day and realize, okay, I have a 3-hour block where I can really focus on those tasks. And tomorrow is when I will do that. So that has also been really helpful. I've been sticking with that weekly tracking, weekly time blocking as much as possible, and finding it really helpful. And then in general, it's just like the format of the daily brain dump, so helpful for me. That's one of the things that I noticed right away was making an impact just for my general stress levels. So I filled this notebook in April and I had to start on my next one. So fortunately I already had another one ready to go. So this is another Dingbats notebook, but this is the Earth collection. This was the Pro collection. And there are some big differences between these two, but you can see like one of the biggest ones for me was the size of it. Going to something smaller is a little bit of a mixed bag, because I loved the page real estate I had for the big one when I was taking notes, but I love this form factor because it just carries better. Like it fits in smaller bags and it's not as heavy. The other thing about this one is like it already came with an index, so that was already in there for me. I didn't have to do it myself. Also comes with page numbers, so I didn't have to label the pages myself. And this one's actually like instead of being bright white, it's like a little off white and dot grid. This has been a change in terms of the overall like vibe of the notebook for me, but I think I'm actually starting to like this one better than the Pro. This actually has way more pages too, 184 pages on this one, but I'm definitely going to fill it before the year's end at the rate that I'm going. I mean, I just write so much now. I think the next one I'm going to go to is going to be another plain one, and I'll see how that goes as well. But this one, they give you like more tabs. There are these little tabs here where you can color them in with a marker, so that way if you were flipping through you would know like exactly which category it went to. I haven't really stuck with that or tried it out very much. I tried it a little bit and was meh. I'm usually not flipping through so willy-nilly that I would really need to like color match like that. So I never got used to that. They also build the future log in for you, so you don't actually have to write this in at the top yourself. I've just put so much in here. Okay, one of my favorite things that I've done so far is my gymnastics progress page. So, oh, I'm wearing my CU gymnastics shirt too. So I started gymnastics as an adult. I did not do it as a kid. So I was very unaware that it could take multiple years to get a skill. I was like, oh, well, I'll come in, I'll work really hard, I'll train really hard, and then I'll get my skills. And reality is so much different than that expectation. It's actually so difficult to build skills and get new skills, and I am learning that now as an adult while I try to do these things that would have been a lot easier if I were younger probably. It's very similar to the PhD program where you really can't tell if you're making progress day to day. You have to reflect at longer time periods to see if you're making progress. I started this gymnastics progress page where I would just write the date and I would write an accomplishment that I had, or something I was proud of, or even just the way that a practice went, like felt really strong at practice today, feel like my endurance is improving. Could be all that's on there. No particular skill, but just like a general vibe check. Being able to look back on those is so encouraging on the weeks when I'm having a really bad time, which was definitely last week, where I don't know what happened, but I got really mentally blocked on back tumbling. So I've been working on a back tuck and a back handspring, which are like very elementary skills for someone who did gymnastics growing up and are very scary for someone like me who's doing them at my advanced age. So I got a really bad mental block on those last week and it's super discouraging. So I just go back to this progress page and I revisit, that timeline of progress. Like you've been in a bad state before and you overcame it. And that's really all you need to do to remind yourself, like, okay, this is how it works normally. You struggle, you get better, you struggle, you get better, you struggle, you get better. And the progress pages helped me a lot with that. And so I started actually doing more of a, instead of PhD milestones where I'm only like celebrating accomplishments, more of a PhD vibe check, like less focused on achievement type metrics, more focus on I learned something and I was able to explain it really well to somebody, or I figured out this problem that I didn't think I could figure out. So now it's shifting for me from being like a very achievement oriented thing to being a reflection on the progress. And I think that's been a really healthy change and one I'm gonna, keep working on. And I can honestly say that without having written all that stuff down, I wouldn't really have recognized that about myself and about what motivates me. That's just one of the really nice things about journaling I've found so far. And this is full of other super helpful stuff, like weekly time blocking, lots of notes, general thoughts about my channel. Like sometimes I just come up with an idea and I'm like, I want to make a video about that. PhD short and long-term goals, lots of daily logs, like kind of an annual reflection on my PhD program. This is something that my advisor asked us to do. And I needed to think through a lot of the questions that he gave us as prompts first. So I wrote all those down. Oh, I have paper reading notes. So as I'm reading papers, I like to write down the title, sometimes the authors, and then just a few sentences about the key contribution or something interesting about the paper. Just a little like bite-sized morsel to remind myself what I read. And I'll do that for different papers. Most recently, one of the things I added was like a great quotes and writing prompts page. And I did have a very funny quote that I like. Be decisive, right or wrong, make a decision. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make up their minds. I don't know why, but that just struck me as very funny. I know it's gallows humor, but it made me laugh, and I wrote it down, and it's very relatable for those who have decision-making fatigue, who struggle a lot with making a decision and sticking to it because you're thinking about, what could be if you do other things. There's nothing wrong with assessing the situation, but if you are constantly stuck trying to make decisions, it's so tiring. So I like that quote a lot. Just, you got to pick something at some point and you got to go with it for a little while, and you can always, change your mind later. Maybe don't tell yourself that though, or you won't commit. So I can honestly say that this has become the most important tool in my toolbox as a grad student. And I really wish I had seen this book earlier in my career, actually. If I had been able to do this in undergrad, I tried so many things during undergrad, different ways of getting organized, and each one was a growth process, and I learned a lot from it, but I could have been a lot more effective more quickly if I had had a system like this. And I think earlier in my software engineering career, I could have been a lot more effective if I had a system like this, because it would have helped me with manager conversations when you're talking about what your goals are, or, what you hope to do next and stuff. It's nice to be able to just look at something tangible that you've written down and come up with things rather than trying to come up with it on the fly. So I'm super happy with how this is going, and it's now the one thing I bring with me every day. Okay, well, I wanted to share that update with you just in case you thought that I maybe fell off the bandwagon again. I did not. I am on the bandwagon, and I'm very happy about it. I hope that this helps you or maybe motivates you to give this a try, because I do think it's one of the most helpful things I've had in grad school thus far. I know the academic term is about to start up again, and so I really think that you should get a copy of this bullet journal method book, give it a read, see if it might work for you, and then give it an honest try throughout the semester and see if it helps you. It's been so helpful to me. I can honestly say it's the most helpful tool in my toolbox right now as a grad student. Okay, everyone, stay healthy out there. I personally am recovering from what was probably COVID, so stay healthy and be good to yourself, be kind to your body, and I'll see you in the next one. That was a very long update, and hopefully I remembered to look at the camera, because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure I did.